Welcome to the Controversal podcast with me, Jonathan Troy. This is my brother,
Alex Troy.
and we're going to take a look at some controversial statements and then debate those controversial statements. And that's what we do on this podcast. We debate and we celebrate people's differences and we have a good time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Enjoying yourself, are you?
That'd be such a good radio DJ.
That's debatable.
It's not debatable.
First topic
it's controversial.
First topic, whether or not that's true.
Do you want to get into the first topic?
Yeah,
I'm so obsessed with getting close to the microphone, and that's my issue.
Yeah, I know your voice is going
I'm
in and
like,
out as well.
hello. I don't want to be too far away from it either. Oh shit. Oh fuck you. Okay. Our first topic is pineapple on pizza.
Yes, here for it.
We need to frame this. So, pineapple shouldn't be on pizza. Discuss.
There should be no toppings on pizza. Pizza should just be margarita, and that's it. Cheese and tomato.
Not even some sort of meat.
No.
You don't think there should be any toppings, let alone pineapple, on pizza?
No, but I do like bland food, so there's caveat it with that. I would say.
So, what do you think about other people having pineapple on pizza?
I think they can have pineapple on pizza if it's cut off small enough, so it's not chewy.
But the concept of fruit.
I would never have any.
Something...
I would have no toppings on pizza.
Okay, but you're okay. You're okay with other people having pineapple on pizza?
I don't mind if other people want to have pineapple on pizza.
This is what we call.
How do you feel about it?
Sitting on the fence on a controversial podcast. Well, funnily enough, I feel the same way. I do. I don't think it's that big a deal for people to have pineapple on their pizza, but I wouldn't have it on there myself.
The problem with pineapple is there is no other fruit you would have on there, is there? I think that's why it's controversial to have pineapple on pizza.
Well, exactly. So if you had apple or an orange on a pizza, that would be
weird,
unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But pineapple is for some reason acceptable.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because it's with a savoury. Because I would have sweet pizza, like a Nutella pizza.
What, with a pineapple?
But without. But I'm saying like you'd have strawberries and Nutella, say for example. But that's because it's a sweet topping, whereas pineapple's sweet, but you're having it with a savoury topping. I think that's why people are upset about it.
So are we saying that it shouldn't be allowed?
I'm not saying it shouldn't be allowed. I'm saying I probably wouldn't choose it.
Yeah, but you wouldn't choose it because you don't like it.
I like pineapple.
Do you? You like pineapples?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I just don't like big chunks. I like them cut up into small chunks.
So you can't taste them?
No, just it's a texture issue.
Yeah, no, I am the same. So I don't like big filthy chunks of pineapple.
Do you make some more noises into the microphone?
Let that be the end of it. That's
okay.
What I was going to say. Yeah, I think we've nailed that one.
So do I.
Right. Maybe we'll do one that we have more of a strong opinion on. I think this one you might have a good strong opinion, so I'll go to your opinion on it first again. The statement is, fucking hell, all kids have to do chores. Go.
At what age?
Any age. So the concept is, as a child, you should have been made to do chores by your parents. Not like, from 2 years old, but like, as a child, it's part of your duty to do stuff around the house for your parents, essentially.
I don't think it is a child's duty to do stuff around the house. I don't think a child is like a slave to the parent.
Interesting. But do you think that they should do chores?
I think they should do...
Like for pocket money and stuff like that?
I think they should do chores for pocket money. They shouldn't just have to do chores as a child. without reward. I think the point of a child doing chores is for them to learn routines and habits that they're going to have to do as they get older. So it's good to get them into a routine and a habit, and it's also good for them to learn to earn money, to get a reward for doing something. Although I think something like reading a book is a much better way to reward a child, for them to learn rather than to
reading a book is a reward.
No, I think they should reward them for things like reading a book. I think that's more important because it teaches them a better mindset of trading their time for money.
You like the idea of training them to trade their time for money?
No, I don't. I think they should learn it for the importance of habits. And the fact that they are going to have to do all these things as they get older anyway, because they're going to own a home or live in a home, and they will have to learn to do these things whether they like it or not. So you might as well get them into the habit of knowing that these things have to be done around the house. But I think that something like giving them pocket money for completing a book is much more beneficial to them, to self-learning basically, over trading their time, taking the bins out or whatever, for trading their time for money basically, which is what every employed person does. It's a better mindset for a child to have, to educate themselves rather than trade their time for money. So trade their money for education, basically. Okay, here's one for you. Life is easy when you're beautiful. How do you feel about beautiful people?
I do find life quite easy. Life is easy for beautiful people. That is a very interesting one, actually, because I would argue that, yes, life is easier for beautiful people. I think that there are lots of benefits to being beautiful that we pretend aren't that important, and we live in a very kind of like body positive, everybody's got something to offer kind of world, but it's not the reality. The reality is we all want to look like certain beautiful people, and as a result we gravitate towards those people, and opportunities are offered towards those people because they are naturally more appealing than those who are not.
So you'd say there's a beauty privilege?
I would say
there's
a beauty privilege, yeah.
Okay, so I actually saw an interesting clip on this the other day from a pod, maybe another podcast or on TikTok or Instagram or something, and it was saying that if a attractive guy walks up to a girl at a bar and tries to chat her up, even if she's taken or not interested, she will appreciate the fact that an attractive guy has tried to talk to her.
Yeah,
as long as they're respectful, obviously, and just want to strike up a conversation, they'll feel happy. They'll move away from that conversation, even if they say, no, sorry, I've got a boyfriend, or I'm married, or even if they're not interested for whatever reason. They'll feel happy about that, and they'll tell their friends, "Oh, this really nice guy chatted me up, blah blah blah." Whereas if you're an unattractive guy and you do that in a bar, or you're overweight or whatever, poorly dressed or whatever you want to class as unattractive, you're then some sort of creep, like approaching a girl, and the girl would be like, "Oh, why is this guy coming up to me?" Blah blah blah. So there's that side of privilege. And I do agree with that, but the strong argument I would make against it is it doesn't matter how good looking you are or how ugly you are, it's about whether or not you can approach that girl in the bar, or the girl can approach a guy in the bar. Because it's all well and good going, oh, well, it's like this person's got this privilege because they're a 10 out of 10, they've got an amazing body, they're dressed well, they look great. But if they can't go and talk to a girl and they're trying to meet a future wife, or they can't talk to a guy and they want to meet their future husband, and you've got someone who's nowhere near as good looking, nowhere near as good in shape, not as well dressed, but they can just walk up to everyone and have a conversation. And not only can they have the confidence to walk up to a conversation, but they're charismatic and they can hold conversation and they can make someone laugh. That's worth 10 times more than being good looking.
Yes. Well, you're probably not wrong there, but it depends on your interpretation of privilege, because the privilege that you experience with being good looking exists whether you know how to use it or not. So if you're talking about someone who's got really good like conversation, really charismatic, but they're really ugly,
no one's going to come up to them. But
no one's going to come up to them. But if they go up to someone and they can chat them up, that's fine. But the reality is that if another person has the same charisma, but also the good looks, then they're immediately privileged. So you could argue that all of it's a privilege, essentially. If you've got confidence and you've got charisma, then that's a privilege. And if you've got good looks, that's also a privilege. So it's kind of like a privilege, a balancing act between how much privilege you actually experience. But then you can argue it depends how you interpret the concept of people throwing that privilege in your face, essentially. So saying, well, life's easier for you because you're good looking.
Yeah.
How deep do you take the word privilege?
Yes. Well, and also it all changes, doesn't it? Because you could be someone that's overweight and then you don't have the privilege of being in shape, but you could then become in shape and then you have a different, you have a privilege then.
There's certain things you can control and certain things you can't control. Yeah. And being good looking to an extent is an interesting one because you can't control how good looking you are as a base level. But I've always believed that both for men and women, there is, if you want to be good looking by society standards, if you want to be beautiful by society standards, everybody can reach a certain level quite easily. And that's quite simply you
dress nice, smell nice, in shape, do your hair.
Yeah, exactly. Figure out what head shape you have. Figure out what head shape you have. Cut your hair so that it works. Yeah, get in shape, eat well, your skin will look good, get some clothes that fit your figure well, and like literally you'll be as good looking as like the top 20% of the people. But the only people that won't are people who've got like serious
I don't know if you're supposed to laugh at it. I know what you mean. That if you have like really bad acne, for example, there's nothing you can
do. Like a massive nose or something.
Oh yeah, that. What? No, yeah, I know what you mean. But again, there's lots of things people have now done, fillers and Botox and all sorts of, people have nose jobs and stuff now if you want to change those stuff.
But there's a couple of realities that still exist. So, for example, if you work I work in marketing, obviously, and there is a reality to the way that you market something. People have tried to socially engineer this out of the world, but a beautiful person in like the clothes you're trying to sell or whatever, they make a difference. Like that is still a reality, and people try to pretend it's not. And there are some people who actively avoid that. But at the end of the day, like if you put me in a brand new like Ralph Lauren top versus like David Gandy, or who I think his name is David Gandy.
Yeah.
Like he's famous, so maybe that's not the best example. But like a good-looking person, then the good-looking person's going to sell more of the Ralph Lauren tops. Basically, it's just that simple. And so there's avenues open.
But there is a big movement at the moment of like plus size models now selling products, and there is a large portion of the country now that's overweight. So therefore, do they then become more appealing? Obviously, we're moving slightly away from beauty here onto weight, but like you said, beauty is you can only do so much with your looks. Whereas, like for example, overweight, if you class overweight as being unattractive in the eye of like world beauty of what you would say is like people with a six-pack and slim, that's what people class as beautiful on a very basic level, not on a more deep level. Would you say
surface level?
On a surface level, yeah. Or a materialistic level, would you say that then the larger people now though are now more
attractive?
Yeah, but become more attractive because
we're pushing them into
more socially acceptable.
Is beauty societally constructed in the first place, essentially? Yeah. No, I think that beauty is. I think the question is are things the way they are because we made them that way, or did we make them that way because that's the way things are?
Yeah.
And I think it's the latter. I think that beautiful people are considered the beautiful people because they're the beautiful people.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll socially engineer it out. And I think when it comes to that marketing sort of idea that they're using larger models and stuff, I think it's great if it helps people feel a little bit included and stuff. But although I don't think, certain levels of obesity should be encouraged. But I think
that is controversial.
I think it probably is. That's terrifying. But I think we buy things and we operate based on what we want and not who we believe to be. We operate on who we believe we want to be, not on who we actually are. I think that's a fundamental truth of human nature.
Is the opposite of that privilege is that people don't approach more attractive people because they think that they're unapproachable.
Yeah, but that seems like one of those like, what's the term I'm looking for? It's that it's not a big deal. Like if you're like moaning, like being like, oh, do you know what? It's so hard to choose what to spend all my money on. Like you don't understand the problem. Like I could buy 5 different TVs and it's just so hard to choose which one. And you're like, well, it might be, but it's not a problem.
Yeah, but
it's a problem of privilege, ironically.
But then if all the TVs turned their backs every time you went to look at them because they didn't want to have.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. Firstly, TVs can't do that.
You know what I'm saying, though. You know what I'm saying.
No, but I disagree. I don't think people do that. Like there might be like, oh, you don't go and talk to them, but there's nobody who turns their back. Single people who turn their back on beautiful people because they're just like, I haven't got a chance with you.
I think a lot of single people would consider not talking to someone who's more attractive than them.
Yes, but not if the more attractive person is the one who's clearly initiating the conversation.
Yeah, but we're not talking. I'm not talking about them initiating. I'm talking about people initiating with them. So you're saying that the privilege is that they would get more attention because they're more attractive. But is it not also true that people would give them less attention? On a more of a this is more on a dating scale really than a work scale, because on a work scale obviously you're not approaching someone because they are or aren't attractive. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, this is on a dating.
This is more on a dating scale. But then do you think on a work scale, do you think someone would be employed who's better looking?
Yes, I do. And there supposed to be like studies suggesting the thing called the halo effect, which is the concept that a beautiful person, because you like the look of that beautiful person, they create sort of a halo effect, which means you automatically believe that they are better at doing things than they are. So if you were asked, like, do you think this person can play football? If they're a good-looking guy, you would probably subconsciously think, yeah, they must be, because look at them, they're a good-looking person. And I believe, although I don't have them with me, there are studies that show that. And there's also studies that show things like beautiful people get less jail time than unattractive people. So
beauty privilege does exist.
I think beauty privilege massively exists. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a key point there. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, like, as you alluded to, everybody has privileges in different places, and I think beautiful people should be allowed to be beautiful people, and I don't think we should be annoyed that they are, because there's plenty of things they don't have a privilege in. Like, they might be really stupid, and some people get really lucky in life, and they're really smart, and they're really charismatic, and they're really wealthy, and they're really good looking, and it happens, and we aspire to be those people, but it's not that many people. Everybody has their own stuff.
And a lot of the time, the most popular people are those people.
Yeah, and they make it look
like celebrities.
And well, exactly, and we laud them up, and we shouldn't act like that is the norm, because it isn't. But we also shouldn't like pretend like that these people don't have all those things going on. Like, yeah. So, beauty is a privilege.
Okay, I think that went a lot better with me asking the question. So I'll ask the next one as well.
I think I said some extremely insightful stuff.
Clowns are scary.
Clowns are 100% scary. I think that clowns are a terrible
Aren't clowns
children's entertainer.
Aren't clowns only scary in context?
In what context?
Well, in the context of, if you saw a clown in the middle of the night, that's scary. Whereas if a clown was making balloons for a child, I wouldn't find the clown scary. If the clown then pulled out a knife, I'd find that scary. If he pulled out a pump to pump up the balloon, I would just be like, oh, it's a clown pumping a balloon up.
Yes, but the point would be that a clown can somehow work itself into the context of it being a scary
Is that not
thing.
Just because of movies, though?
Potentially. So potentially there's a reason for it that we've manufactured it, but there are plenty of things that haven't been manufactured into scary beings or ideas, and the clown has, and I think the clown has for good reason, because it is a grotesque caricature of a human being, which is kind of synonymous with a concept of like a horror character.
But it's not scary looking, is it? It's no different. The women are going to hate this than putting makeup on for a girl and changing her face to look like a completely different person.
Yeah, but
they do look like a completely different person. When they take their makeup off, they literally take a layer of colour off their face of whatever they've put on, which is no different to what a clown is doing.
Yeah, but a clown's doing it in a more aggressive, noticeable way.
But aren't clowns normally like got a big smile drawn on and stuff?
Yeah, which is kind of creepy, isn't it? Like most creepy things have like massive fake smiles. Nothing scarier than a big fake smile.
I don't know about that.
But
I can see that you're a little taken back by clowns, which I didn't know.
Oh, clowns are horrifying. I'm not.
Would you now never hire a clown then for a child's birthday?
I would never hire a clown.
Even if your child was like, I'm desperate, I want a clown for my birthday, would you not hire one?
I would throw that child in the trash.
He'd be doing, or she'd be doing chores all week.
I'd dress up as a clown, and then I would wait till they fall asleep, and I'd go there at 2:00 in the morning, and I would scare the shit out of them in a clown outfit so that they never ask for a clown again. No, I wouldn't. If my child wanted a clown, I'd get them a clown. I'm not completely I'm not scared of clowns just in the street and stuff, but I understand the concept of them being scary, and I don't think that they are something that is like clearly and overtly like a good idea. And I do think that is partly because society has hijacked them to be some creepy clowns. And I think you've seen the John Wayne Gacy, I think it is. He's the guy who loved clowning, and he was like a serial killer.
Oh, so is everything on Netflix about it at the
moment?
Yeah,
it's a Netflix
I haven't seen
show.
It, but yeah.
And there's that famous story. Have you ever heard the famous story about the clown in the corner? Oh well, yeah. But
no.
So, and I think this is loosely
based.
Is
the corner to do something with it sitting with the teddies?
Yeah. Basically, the little girl keeps crying, and then when they call the parents, which this haunted me as a child, to be fair, this story, and maybe that's where it sort of stems from. But they said like, oh, get out of the house now, and that like really gives me like makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up thinking about it.
So basically, that story for anyone watching this is that there is a child in a bedroom, and is it a babysitter? The mum and dad are out, and there's a babysitter in, and the child's complaining about...
Keeps just crying, basically.
Yeah, about something in the room, essentially. And then they say that the babysitter rings the parents, and the babysitter says there's the clown is upsetting the child. And they basically tell her...
Get out of the house. Get out of the house now.
There's no clown.
Don't take it, just take the baby and go.
Right? That's scary, but if that was the case... And that's what scared you. Wouldn't it be just as scary if it was a cuddly animal there that turns out not to be a cuddly animal, and it was a bear or a giraffe, and they're like, there's not a giraffe cuddly animal in there, so get out?
I mean, that would be extra scary if there was a giant giraffe in the room.
No, I'm talking about a human dressed up.
Yes, maybe. But it doesn't stop the clown from being scary as a result.
Yeah, I think it's just... I don't think it's the actual clown. I mean, I can understand why people might be scared, but I think it is drummed into you. It's like
saying flying isn't scary because it's only like because you're not crashing, and it's like, yeah, but the point is that you're scared of flying because you have a much higher chance of crashing as long as you're flying.
But is there a much higher chance of being killed by a clown than just a normal human being? In fact, I would say
I
the
would
opposite.
say so. I would say
a much lower chance of being killed by a clown than just a normal human being, not dressed as a clown.
No, but I'm not scared of being killed by a clown in general. I'm saying that clowns in general are creepy. And that's because in modern culture we have created the concept of them being creepy. So I would say as a result, there is more chance now of a clown being creepy. And I think if you're into clowning, I've got nothing against you personally, but I think it's a strange thing to be into because you know that it's got a creepy undertone to it.
Yes, I would agree.
And yet you're still doing it, which in itself becomes slightly more creepy. Controversial.
I quite like if you watch some of the makeup artists though online doing their tutorials, they're very, very talented and impressive with what they can do. But then going out dressed like that, I get is a bit weird. Didn't they drop Ronald McDonald because of that?
Quite possibly. I mean,
Because
Ronald McDonald in your house at night. Terrifying.
Yeah, I get that, but anyone in my house that's unexpected at night is terrifying. I don't want anyone in my house. If it was a small child and he was standing there with a machete with no clown face on, that would scare me. Even though I could probably take the child.
Be scary. But the clown's almost on a supernatural level scary.
Well, look, if someone alters their eyes and didn't have any makeup on, that would be as scary as a clown. If you put white contacts in or red contacts in, and just a girl done her makeup and just put no contacts in with no colour, so just white, that would be just as scary, but it would be just makeup, in my personal opinion. And again, that's why I say with context, because if a clown was in your house, then that would be scary, but if a clown was just walking down the street, I wouldn't think anything of it. I don't really worry about it anyway. The clowns wear massive shoes. You'd be able to run away.
Yeah, they wouldn't even... I'd beat a clown up. No problem. Okay. Well, I think that's a good topic.
Okay, that was a good topic.
Let us know what you think in the comments.
What? What's the time? Okay, right. Let's do one more and then we'll do a reflex. Billionaires shouldn't exist.
Ooh!
Controversial.
That is controversial. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna preempt a little bit what your position is on this, and so as a result, I'm going to say billionaires should not exist. We shouldn't be living in a society in which someone is able to attain the wealth of a billionaire. And I think that to give you some context for that thought is that conceptually I don't have a problem with billionaires right now, but I think we should be moving towards a society that doesn't allow that level of wage or
wealth
disparity across us as a society. I don't think we need to get to a point where there are so many people having so much of the wealth to themselves.
Okay. So I would say that I agree with the wealth disparity. People who are nurses and doctors and teachers and policemen and firemen and all those and NHS workers are all very, very important jobs, in my opinion, the most important jobs in society. There should definitely not be a gap between someone who earns billions of pounds and those people who might be earning less than £30,000 a year. That's ridiculous. There should be a lot more money for those people. I'm not saying they should obviously be necessarily millionaires, but they should definitely be on a much, much higher wage, and that can obviously be brought down if you had less disparity between those people and billionaires. However, and Elon Musk buying Twitter is a good example, when you have things worth £40 billion, who can buy them if there's no billionaires? And Twitter is the perfect example, because Twitter has gone off on a radical left-wing tirade where basically everyone's getting cancelled and shut down if you don't agree with these very far left political movements that are happening.
Controversial.
It's not controversial.
But isn't it dangerous that like individual human beings can attain a level of wealth in which they can purchase and certain companies that allow them just to have full control over them.
Yes, and really and I don't understand why this hasn't happened yet, because it's absolutely insane that it hasn't happened yet. It's because there's a bunch of 70-plus-year-old men running countries who don't understand technology. But there should have been government intervention in all social media years ago.
Regulation,
innovation,
innovation,
social
education.
Media, to prevent these sort of radical movements happening. Not saying that all the movements aren't important, and they should happen, some of them, but especially on Twitter, a lot of them are radical. Teaching children about changing your sex at the age of 10, things like that are radical. That's just that, and again, not controversial in my opinion. That kind of thing, it should have been regulated much earlier on. Telling people you hope they die, that you're going to kill them, that you hope they get cancer, blah blah blah. All these things should have been regulated. You should have some sort of social.
But there's no saying that Elon Musk. I know he says he is going to.
No, you're right.
Address that, but he might not address it. It might be. He might be super left wing and then go extra mental on it.
To be fair, he's probably only bought it so he can move cryptocurrency markets aggressively.
Controversial.
But
so for that, so the reason being is that there are very expensive things in the world, and that's why there are billionaires. Yes, and so
bear in mind that, like, the things like the Saudi Arabia family and the what are the American ones called? I think they're American.
The Rothschilds.
So they're like £1 trillion
dynasties.
Yeah. So, we're worrying about single billionaires. And bear in mind, Elon Musk, he's a particularly bad example of a billionaire because he's done a lot of good for the world in what he's done. But, he got paid out, 180 million or something like that from PayPal? He could have just retired and not done anything. He's built Solar City, he's built Tesla, he's built SpaceX, he's built Neuralink, Starlink. He's done all these amazing things with his money. You've got Jeff Bezos' wife, who divorced Jeff Bezos and then gave something like 15 billion, I think,
to charity.
Stupid
amount to charity.
The problem is, everyone's then complained, is that in the time she's given all that money away, she's made more money because obviously the shares in Amazon have gone up considerably, and therefore, but that is how capitalism works. People buy into products that they believe is good, that people believe Amazon is a good product, and that's why it's so successful and there's so much money in it.
Yes,
I think it's understanding that. Also, the other thing you have to understand is Elon Musk doesn't have billions of pounds in cash. A lot of his money is tied up in stock. So
all of it's tied up in stock.
So he has to say, he's had to borrow money to buy Twitter. He's not just gone, I've got 40 billion sitting in the bank, I'm just going to take my 40 billion cash out.
Isn't that a bit mental as well, though? Do you see what Trevor Noah said about this? Like, this is like kind of.
Trevor Noah.
You don't like him? No, I wouldn't think you would. He's all right. But I think he's spot on about this. So the point he was making is that if you own stock, you're worth a certain amount of money, obviously, but you don't technically have that money, which is the age-old question about how someone like Elon Musk can get away with paying so little tax in comparison to what he earns.
Yeah.
Because,
although, again, Elon Musk, for example, because he's paid more tax than any other human being.
Yeah, but see, we can get into that because he still hasn't, though, is he? I pay, like, of a percentage of what I earn and what I need to live, I pay a stupid amount of tax. And because he's a billionaire, he would have to pay 40 billion before he comes close to contributing to society the way I do, or as a percentage of my sacrifice. My sacrifice towards society is so much greater than Elon Musk's.
But the problem with that is he has hundreds, if not thousands, of people who rely on him making money, whereas you don't.
And
all those people pay taxes on top of that as well.
Yeah, but I'm not against a hierarchy in general, but I'm saying, like, there's got to be a line at which you say, well, the disparity here is not referencing like the idea that someone can just be worthy of over 10 billion times the amount that you're worth, for example, or I'm worth. That seems like we've got that drastically wrong as to where the difference is. Like someone could be hundreds of thousands of times more worthy, maybe, but that seems to be like the limit for me.
Yeah, but the problem with that being is that he left PayPal with 180 million. Right, so he only had 180 million. He's chosen to spend that whole 180 million, which most people wouldn't do. They would just, that would be it then. They'd just pack up and finish, work for life. As most people do when they win lottery or win large sums of money, they just spend it straight away on luxuries. He invested nearly all his money into 3 different companies, SpaceX, Tesla, and another one, the boring company. Solar City. Yeah. And chose to grow those companies. And then invested more and more money. The more money he earned, the more money he invested into different things. So if you're going to do that, then then you are going to continuously make more money because you're providing a service. If you're not providing a service to anyone, then you're probably not. There's no billionaires walking around who just have a day job.
No. And I get that, but again, I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't be able to earn a lot of money if they're offering a lot to society. But my point would be, why does it have to be that much money?
Well, so
how could it?
How would you? The question is then, is how? So say society picks a number, right? So let's say 1 billion is the maximum anyone's wealth can be. The problem with it is the reason he's so rich is because the public and institutions are investing in him or his company. That's why he's become so rich, right? Yeah, it's not, people aren't directly paying him money and going, here you go, here's giving him his money. They're buying stock. The stock goes up. They're making money because they're buying the stock market. While lots of people might be shorting his stock, lots of people are buying his stock and it goes up, and then therefore his wealth goes up, which then gives him obviously much more leverage. But what, with the way the current system works in terms of capitalism and people and a stock becoming publicly traded or a company becoming publicly traded, how can you prevent that from happening?
Good question. I mean, that's very difficult because of the situation we're in. But at the moment, right, he borrows money to live off the back of his stock, right? So when he bought Twitter, right? And so he went to some banks and he said, can I borrow $4 billion or whatever? And this is obviously a very top line version of what he did. Mm-hmm. And so if I went to a bank and I said, can I borrow $4 billion? They would say, well, no, because you're not going to pay that back. But when he goes there, he says, well, if I don't pay it back, you can have my stock.
Yeah,
right?
So he's got leverage.
But
I could do that and you could do that with your house. You just can't borrow that amount because you haven't got that leverage.
Yeah, but the problem is that stock, if he's doing that, that means that stock is worth money to him, right? But he's not paying any tax on that money because it's not money, apparently. So the concept is like, oh, he doesn't pay any tax because actually he doesn't earn that much because actually his wealth is purely stock.
Yeah,
but then he's going to a bank and he's saying, well, can I have 4 billion, please? You can have my stock. And they're saying, oh, yeah, you can do that. So if I was going to say, how do we stop it? I would say you can't use your stock as leverage to borrow money. And then he'll have to just be regular rich off the back of what he pays on his salary and any dividends he takes out of actual profits. And therefore he would have to post his profits so that he can get taxed properly.
I agree that there should be some sort of line where rich people are taxed. That there should be a certain amount where that goes in line with your stock that you have to pay yourself. So if your stock is worth, I don't know, £100 per stock, and you have X amount of shares, your wage has to go up in line with that. So you are paying yourself essentially. So if your wage starts off at 40,000, and hundreds of thousands of people buy your shares and they go up, then your wage needs to go up with that, and so you're paying a fair tax on it.
Yeah.
But what you're saying with the whole leverage side of it is, I've just done that with my house. And anyone could do that once they've got leverage on something. So I've just borrowed tax-free money against my house because I remortgaged and borrowed money against a price of my house. My house might go down in price now, back down to what my mortgage is.
Yeah.
And therefore, if it went back down, I would have 100% mortgage essentially on my house because the house has gone back down in price. So he's just what he's doing with the bank is just they're basing it on the valuation of a company, same way you value it on a house or any sort of asset that you're going to leverage and borrow money against it. And that's what the rich people do.
Yeah, but over 100 million, you can't do it.
Well, obviously his is very excessive.
But yeah, but that would be one way to.
But in that example, then companies like, for example, Tesla might never have happened. You're preventing innovation.
Why wouldn't they have happened?
Well, because if he needed X and whatever that amount is, X amount, say it's more than the amount you're setting, like 100 million, and he needed 120, and therefore he sunk 100 million into it and couldn't sink any more in because we've put in a rule where you can only put 100 million in, and he needed more money, and you said, well, you can't do that, and then his company went bust.
Yeah, but that's not because that's not the only way for you to raise money. There's always been plenty of places and ways to raise money. This is just a way to stop people from leveraging tax loopholes essentially at a certain level, so that we can funnel more of it back into public services. If he needs it 120 million and he can only get 100 million from the bank, say obviously I'm not suggesting that this is the creme de la creme of answers, but then he needs to find a shareholder who's got 20 million, or like a business partner, who can give him 20 million.
But then what happens?
Or use 20 million of his own.
Won't you then have the same problem though if 10 people go, well, this is bullshit. There's 10 of us who are all mega rich. Let's all get together with our 100 million and create this new company, which is then going to be well over already that amount.
Potentially.
Because then their company's going to be worth 10x of 100 million before they start, because they're all going to invest 100 million into it because they can't invest their own billion into it.
Potentially, but isn't that better because it's less likely that you're going to be able to do those things then as a result? So it gives just less utility to move around and save for those rich people, which is all it is for me. It's like it's not allowing it to be so easy to do and like to act like that's okay, because at the moment we have this kind of like concept of, well, they deserve it, they worked hard for it, and like this is how it works. And it's kind of like, well, shouldn't we be trying to regulate to a point where you're still allowed to make money, but it's not necessarily easy to do?
I would say that all the regulation that's in place is put in place at the wrong price points by a mile. Like all the regulation points come in at about £100,000, which is fuck all.
Yeah,
if you live in London. That's where pretty much all the regulation comes in. Like now, if you're trying to buy, for example, a second property, it's very difficult to go from one property to two. To get the money together to buy the one is fine, but to get the second property is very, very difficult. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, and there's just a lot more to it, and you need a lot more money to get that second property. Whereas if you go down the line 10 properties down, it becomes very, very easy. You have huge cash flow, and there's no regulation, and you can buy hundreds of properties because you have the cash flow from once you get to property 10. But going from property 1 to 2 is what's difficult. And it's the same with billionaires and high level CEOs. You have a high level CEO that pays a large amount of tax but doesn't actually earn that much. They might only be earning £500,000, which is obviously a lot of money, but not in comparison to £1 billion.
Yeah. And
the regulation is all on that person and not at the £1 billion level, whereas really the regulation should be aimed at something like 5 or 10 million plus. Okay, well, let's get some more stats, and we can come back to billionaires shouldn't exist with more statistics.
We'll take some. Let's go to the phone lines.
How long we've been filming?
A long time. It doesn't say.
It's been an hour now.
Yeah.
Pretty peckish.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's hit the reflex.
Okay, so reflex is a segment where one of us presents the other one with a controversial statement that the other one has not heard and has to give their absolute immediate response to. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a controversial.
Well, apparently, it's not very controversial.
Well, I mean, it is controversial, depending obviously whether we disagree or agree with each other. But I wouldn't say it's controversial, but it's.
Is it just people... Is it like just a?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll read it.
Okay, you tell me what it is, and I'll see how I respond.
If we have a meeting scheduled for midday.
Fuck, I know exactly what this is going to be. Okay. Forward.
And I say, can we move it forward 2 hours?
And I've had this.
What time would that meeting then be?
It's a great question, and there is a correct answer, and I've had this conversation many times.
Because I would agree there's a correct answer.
So it's at midday today, and you're pulling it forward by an hour.
Yeah, but let's say midday. Say it's midday tomorrow. We've got a meeting midday tomorrow, and I want to move the meeting forward 2 hours. What time are we having our meeting?
10 a.m.
I would say 2 p.m.
No, because you're wrong, and you're so wrong it's ridiculous, and it's embarrassing, and you should go and hide in a hole somewhere.
I'm going to tell you why I'm right, and I'm going to...
No, because you're going to give me a bunch of... Oh, you can tell me, obviously, because I'm not... But you're going to give me a bunch of stuff that isn't pertinent to the situation. Sorry, so go on. Tell me, give me your completely useless reasons as to why it's moved forward, moves it from 12 to 2.
Because when you move something forward, you go forward in time. That would be the basics of it. So if someone said you're going to move something forward, you go forward in time, not backwards in time. If you said, can we bring it back to bring it back? I think it's the wording.
Yes.
If someone says, can you move it forward, then I would assume forward in time. But
if you're bringing something,
whereas if someone said, can we bring it back? Can we bring it back 2 hours? I would assume you're bringing it back in time to 10.
But the way you're looking at
you're looking at it is in linear time, aren't you? And I'm looking at it from the clock.
No, you're looking at it in linear time. You're looking at it as like it's all on one line, and everything's moving forward and everything's moving back. So therefore, if you move something forward, it's got to go away from you. But when you're talking about...
The clock's the same though, because if you're moving it forward on a clock, the clock has got to go round forward 2 hours. If you're saying, can we move it forward?
So if you were to say someone...
So in what scenario are you right?
Well, I'll tell you now. Okay. Get ready for the Smackdown. So what you don't understand is...
Let's have Barlow.
Is that when you are moving towards a meeting, right? So I'll agree. If someone said to me, oh, it's 8 o'clock, can you just move that clock forward 2 hours? I would put it to 10 o'clock, right?
Right.
But if you said we've got a meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock, that meeting is moving forwards towards me and I'm moving forwards towards it. So to move it forward, it gets closer to me. So the meeting, when you say move it forward, gets closer to me.
That's the opposite of what forward would be, wouldn't it? If I'm standing in front of you and you say move forward and I'm starting backing up to you, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Wouldn't you?
No, because that's what I'm saying. So you're not looking at it. You're looking at it as this linear, like, objective timeline. But
which is how we view time, yeah.
No, yeah, but that's not how we view meetings. So if something is set in stone as a time, it's 8 hours away. So if you want to move it forward, then it only becomes 6 hours away, which means the meeting has moved forward because it was 8 hours away and now it's 6 hours. So the meeting's trajectory, actually, as you imagine it as a line, is moving towards 0. So it is moving backwards in that sense, but it's moving forwards. Does that make sense?
I don't feel like you've solved the point to it.
No, this is because you're not understanding the point, and this is what happens. People don't understand it, and it's like it's so stupid.
Listen, so I understand. I can understand why people would. I can understand why people get confused with this, and I understand the premise of what you're saying of when someone says move it forward, because you're moving it. Although you're saying moving it forward, you're moving it forward to an earlier time. I do understand that, but in every other scenario, it would be going the other way. Other than in this one scenario.
Yeah, but we're talking about this one particular scenario.
Well, okay, I'm not saying that what you're saying is correct. I'm saying I can understand in that scenario why it would be misconstrued. What I'm saying is in every other scenario, what you're saying doesn't make sense. There's no other scenario where what you're saying makes sense. In every other scenario, if you said, like you just said about moving the clock forward to change the time, when you say the clocks go forward an hour. They don't go back an hour. When they go back an hour, they go back an hour. So why, when you have a meeting and you're going forward, do they go back?
Because for this reason. So this is why it's a contentious topic. Because when you set something as a time, then you mess with the context of what forward and backwards is, and you still think it's like everything else, but it's not, because what you failed to take into account is that the meeting itself has a set place and is trying to get to you just as you were trying to get to it. So if you bring it forward, that means it is closer to you. So you're thinking as the goal is the meeting is to keep going in one direction, but it's not. The meeting's direction is towards me. So when you move it forward, it gets closer to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm right.
I understand.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
I understand why people misconstrued it. What I'm saying is it doesn't make sense in any other scenario other than this one, which is arguable because obviously people think differently of it. But what I'm saying is in every other scenario, it doesn't make sense.
How do we end?
We'll end it with saying, guys, if you've got any controversial topics you want us to discuss, just drop us a message and we will debate them on future podcasts.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much for listening. I mean, genuinely, if someone's listened to this, it's incredible. So thank you so much for listening. And
there'll be more next week.
Yeah, more to come. Happy
Easter.
Debate.
Thanks, guys.